Whispers Among the Elite, the Harrington Foundation. Annual benefit was a sea of designer gowns and custom tuxedos, champagne flutes catching the light from crystal chandeliers that hung like frozen fireworks above the ballroom. Marcus Harrington moved through the crowd with practiced ease, his tailored suit a shield of armor separating him from the sharks circling for donations and partnership opportunities. At 36, Marcus had built Harrington Technologies from his college dorm room into a multi-billion-dollar empire that revolutionized sustainable energy storage. Forbes called him the Green Billionaire, a title he tolerated because it helped business. What the magazines didn't capture was the hollowness behind his smile, the calculated distance he maintained from everyone in his orbit. "Magnificent event as always," said Commissioner Blackwell, clapping Marcus on the shoulder. "Your mother would have been proud." Marcus nodded, the mention of his mother still a bruise that never quite healed. $7 million raised for spinal research tonight. It's a good start. What he didn't say was that no amount of money could erase his guilt. The car accident that claimed his mother's life had also left his father, Howard Harrington, partially paralyzed and unable to speak clearly, a broken shadow of the commanding business titan he once was. Across the room, largely ignored by the glittering crowd, sat Howard in his wheelchair. He was positioned near an ornate column, almost like a decorative afterthought. At 74, his once imposing frame had diminished, shoulders hunched beneath an expensive but loose-fitting suit. His eyes, still sharp despite everything, surveyed the room with quiet resignation. No one approached him. Few even looked his way. Sophia Chen wasn't part of this world. At 29, she volunteered at these events because the foundation funded the music therapy program she ran at Mercy Hospital. Her simple emerald dress was off the rack, her makeup minimal, her dark hair falling in natural waves rather than the structured styles that dominated the room. She noticed the older man immediately, not because he stood out, but because he was trying so hard not to. Something in his isolation called to her. Sophia had spent her life attuned to the silent suffering of others. It was what made her an exceptional therapist. "Excuse me," she said, approaching with a warm smile. "Would you like some water? It's quite warm in here." Howard looked startled, as if surprised someone had acknowledged his existence. He attempted to respond, but the words caught in his throat, emerging as halting sounds rather than clear speech. Instead of showing discomfort or pity, Sophia knelt beside his wheelchair, bringing herself to eye level. "Take your time," she said softly. "I'm not in any hurry." His weathered hand trembled as he tried to gesture, frustration flickering across his face. Sophia gently placed her hand over his. "My name is Sophia. I work with music therapy for stroke recovery. May I sit with you for a moment?" Howard nodded, a tear forming at the corner of his eye. Across the room, Marcus was midway through another practiced conversation when something caught his attention, his father actually smiling. A woman he didn't recognize was seated beside him, her head tilted attentively as Howard struggled to communicate. Instead of the usual awkward retreat most people beat when confronted with his father's halting speech, she leaned in closer, fully engaged. "Excuse me," Marcus said abruptly to the venture capitalist who had been bending his ear. He moved across the room, curious and slightly defensive. His father was his responsibility, his private burden, and his greatest regret. As he approached, he heard something he hadn't heard in 3 years: his father's laughter. It was rough and uneven, but unmistakable. The woman was showing Howard something on her phone, her smile genuine and warm as sunshine breaking through clouds. "I see you've met my father," Marcus said, his voice carefully controlled. Sophia looked up, recognition dawning. "Mr. Harrington, your father was just showing me how to properly fold a pocket square." She smiled at Howard. "He's quite the gentleman." For a moment, Marcus saw his father through her eyes, not as a burden or reminder of tragedy, but as a person with dignity and worth. Something shifted in his chest, a crack in carefully constructed walls. "And you are?" he asked, extending his hand. "Sophia Chen, I'm with the music therapy program your foundation supports." When their hands met, neither could have predicted how that simple touch would change everything that followed. Resonance. 3 days after the gala, Marcus found himself standing outside the music therapy wing of Mercy Hospital. The rational part of his brain, the part responsible for his business success, told him this was foolish. Yet here he was, watching through the window as Sophia worked with a stroke patient, guiding the elderly woman's hands over a small drum. "She's something special, isn't she?" Marcus turned to find Dr. Patel, the hospital's neurological rehabilitation director, beside him. "I'm here to discuss expanding the foundation's funding," Marcus said stiffly. Dr. Patel smiled knowingly. "Of course. Sophia's program has shown remarkable results. Patients who struggle with traditional speech therapy often break through with music." Inside the room, Sophia looked up and noticed Marcus. Surprise flickered across her face before she smiled and motioned for him to wait. There was something unguarded about her that both unsettled and fascinated him. Later, as they walked through the hospital garden, Sophia explained her work with the enthusiasm of someone deeply connected to their purpose. "Music activates different neural pathways than speech," she said. "For someone like your father, who has Broca's aphasia from his stroke, singing can sometimes bypass the damaged areas." Marcus stopped walking. "I didn't come here about my father." "Didn't you?" Sophia looked at him directly, her gaze gentle but unflinching. "He keeps a photograph of himself conducting an orchestra. It was on his wheelchair." "He was a pianist before he became a businessman," Marcus admitted. "I'd forgotten about that photograph." "He hasn't," Sophia said simply. "Mr. Harrington, I think I could help your father. Not just with his speech, but with reconnecting to himself." Something in her quiet confidence cracked his resistance. "He's tried every therapy available." "Has he tried music?" 1 week later, Howard Harrington's mansion echoed with Mozart for the first time in years. Marcus watched from the doorway as Sophia set up a keyboard in his father's sunroom, placing it at wheelchair height. "We'll start simply," she told Howard, whose eyes were fixed on the instrument with longing and fear. "Just one finger, one note at a time." When she guided his right hand to the keys, his fingers trembled violently. Frustration clouded his face as he struggled to press down a single key. "That's perfectly normal," Sophia assured him. "Your brain is relearning pathways. Let's try something different." She began to sing softly, a simple melody from Clair de Lune. After a moment, she paused expectantly. To Marcus's astonishment, Howard hummed the next note, rough and uneven but unmistakably correct. "Music memory is stored differently than other memories," Sophia explained to Marcus later as they sat in the kitchen. "It often remains intact even when speech is compromised." "I haven't heard him make music in any form since before the accident," Marcus said quietly. "Why did you stop playing?" she asked. "Your father mentioned you were quite talented." Marcus stiffened. "That was another lifetime. Business required my full attention. And now? Now we focus on my father's recovery." His tone made it clear the subject was closed. But something had changed in the Harrington household. Twice weekly, Sophia arrived with instruments and sheet music. Howard began humming more frequently, attempting words during their sessions. Most surprisingly, he started using his wheelchair controls independently, meeting Sophia at the door when she arrived. During the 4th session, Marcus returned early from a business trip to find the house filled with Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata. Following the music, he discovered Howard at the keyboard, Sophia beside him. His father's left hand remained still, but his right hand moved slowly across the keys, playing a simplified version of the melody, while Sophia provided the accompaniment. When the piece ended, Howard looked up and saw Marcus. With visible effort, he formed a word. "Listen," Sophia smiled encouragingly. "That's right, Howard. Marcus is listening." "I am," Marcus confirmed, his throat tight with emotion he couldn't express. That night, after Sophia had gone, Marcus sat alone in his study reviewing contracts, but couldn't focus. The image of his father at the piano kept intruding. He found himself opening his laptop and searching for Sophia Chen online. Her professional profile was modest but impressive. Masters in music therapy from Berklee College of Music, research publications on neural rehabilitation, a small TEDx talk about music and brain plasticity. but it was a video of her performing with patients at a hospital benefit that held his attention. Her face alive with joy as she guided an ensemble of rehabilitation patients through a simple but moving piece. Marcus realized with startling clarity that Sophia wasn't just helping his father. She was waking something dormant in himself as well. Dissonant harmonies by the 6th week of therapy, Howard's progress was remarkable. He could consistently produce several words, and his right-hand coordination had improved enough to play simple melodies. More significantly, there was life in his eyes again, purpose in his movements. Sophia suggested they try something more challenging, a small dinner party with 2 of Howard's oldest friends. Socialization is crucial for recovery, she explained. Howard needs to practice communication in real contexts. Marcus was hesitant. My father was an intensely private man even before the stroke. And now? Now he's vulnerable. I won't have him stared at like some curiosity. Sophia's expression softened. Is that for his protection or yours? The question landed like a physical blow. Marcus had spent 3 years shielding his father and himself from the pitying stares and awkward conversations. The thought of deliberately inviting such situations made his chest tighten. I'll arrange it, he finally conceded. The dinner was set for Saturday evening. Marcus personally called Walter Ogilvy and James Chen, his father's oldest friends and former business partners, explaining the situation and setting expectations. To his surprise, both men were immediately supportive. On Saturday afternoon, Marcus found Sophia helping his father select a tie in the master bedroom. The blue brings out your eyes, she suggested. Holding 2 options, Howard pointed decisively to the red one. Always making bold choices, she laughed, helping him secure it. Marcus watched from the doorway, struck by the easy rapport between them. You're good with him, he said. Sophia smiled. He's good with me. It's mutual. Later, as caterers prepared the dining room, Marcus gave Sophia a tour of the house. They paused in the music room where a grand piano sat covered. Your mother's? Sophia asked softly. Yes. She taught piano here. Is that how you learned? Marcus nodded, running his fingers along the covered keys. She believed music was essential to a complete education. What did your father think? He preferred business metrics to musical ones, Marcus said with a hint of bitterness. Until he met my mother. She changed him. People can surprise us that way, Sophia said, her eyes meeting his. The dinner began tentatively. Howard sat at the head of the table, Sophia beside him as support. His old friends, to their credit, treated him normally, directing questions to him rather than talking around him. When Howard struggled with words, Sophia demonstrated a technique they'd practiced. Try tapping the rhythm of the sentence first, she suggested. Howard did, then managed to say, Good. See you. Both. By dessert, something remarkable happened. Howard, with careful concentration, raised his glass and said clearly, To friends! 3 simple syllables that brought tears to James's eyes. Later, as the guests prepared to leave, Walter took Marcus aside. You've kept him hidden away too long, the older man said. He's still Howard. And that young woman, she's something special. After everyone had gone, Marcus found Sophia on the terrace, gazing at the garden illuminated by landscape lighting. Thank you, he said simply. Tonight meant everything to him. Your father is extraordinary, she replied. His determination reminds me of someone else I know. Their eyes met, and for a moment Marcus allowed himself to see beyond her role as his father's therapist. Sophia's presence had brought warmth back into a house that had felt cold for years. Why music therapy? He asked suddenly. What drew you to it? Sophia's expression grew contemplative. My grandfather had a stroke when I was 15. He lost his ability to speak, but he could still sing every word to his favorite songs. The neurologist couldn't explain it. So you found the explanation yourself. I found my purpose, she corrected gently. Not everyone gets that chance. Do you think I haven't? Marcus asked, suddenly defensive. I think your company does important work, she said carefully. But sometimes I wonder if you've forgotten the difference between purpose and achievement. The observation stung because it contained truth he wasn't ready to acknowledge. "It's getting late," he said, retreating behind professionalism. "I'll have my driver take you home." As her car pulled away, Marcus realized their conversation had left him feeling both unsettled and more alive than he had in years. Cadence of Truth, a autumn charity concert for the Harrington Foundation, became the unexpected catalyst for change. Marcus had planned to feature Sophia's music therapy program, showcasing the foundation's impact through video testimonials from patients. What he hadn't planned was his father's request to participate. "You want to perform?" Marcus clarified, certain he had misunderstood. Howard nodded firmly. "Play with Sophia." Sophia, who was present for the conversation, looked surprised but pleased. "We could prepare something simple. A duet, perhaps." Marcus felt immediate resistance. "The event is in 3 weeks." "That's not enough time. I can do it," Howard insisted, his determination evident in the set of his jaw, an expression Marcus recognized from boardroom negotiations years ago. Later, after Howard had retired for the evening, Marcus confronted Sophia in the study. "You put this idea in his head," he accused. "Actually, it was his suggestion," she replied calmly. "During our session yesterday, we were working on a simplified version of Pachelbel's canon. He asked if we could play it for people." "You don't understand the pressure of these events," Marcus said, pacing. "The press will be there. Board members. If he struggles publicly, then what?" Sophia challenged, her voice gentle but firm. "People will see a man courageously fighting to reclaim his life? Is that so terrible? You don't know what he was like before," Marcus said, his composure cracking. "He commanded rooms. His opinion could make or break companies. To see him struggle with basic tasks is humbling," Sophia finished. "But hiding him away won't restore what was lost, Marcus. It only adds isolation to his challenges." The use of his first name, something she'd carefully avoided until now, stopped him short. In the weeks she'd been coming to the house, something had shifted between them, a careful dance of growing attraction neither acknowledged. "I'm trying to protect him," Marcus said, suddenly weary. "I know," Sophia said, stepping closer. "But sometimes protection becomes a prison. For both of you." Her proximity made it difficult to maintain his usual detachment. He could detect the subtle fragrance of her perfume, something light with notes of jasmine. "What if I told you something about your father?" she asked quietly. "Something I discovered during our sessions?" Marcus tensed. "What is it?" "He blames himself for the accident." "Not you," the words hit like physical blows. "That's impossible. I was driving. He believes if he hadn't insisted on taking that business meeting, if he hadn't rushed you to drive in the storm." Her eyes held compassion. "He carries that guilt every day." Marcus turned away, memories flooding back, the argument before they left. His father's insistence on making the meeting despite the weather warning. His mother's gentle attempt to postpone the trip. "How do you know this?" he whispered. "We've been working on a technique where he writes key words when speaking is too difficult. Last week, he wrote 'my fault' repeatedly." The revelation fractured something inside Marcus, the carefully constructed narrative he'd built around that night. For 3 years, he'd shouldered the blame alone, his guilt fueling both his work and his isolation. "Let him play at the concert," Sophia said softly, touching his arm. Not for the audience, but for himself. "For both of you." When she left that evening, Marcus went to his father's room, finding him still awake, looking through old photographs. "Tell me about the accident," Marcus said, sitting beside him. "Your perspective." Over the next hour, with halting words, gestures, and written notes, Howard shared his version of that night. The weight of responsibility he'd carried, the regret that had silenced him more effectively than the stroke. By dawn, both men had shed tears neither thought themselves capable of anymore. The next morning, Marcus called the event planner. "We need to make a change to the program," he said. "My father will be performing." 2 weeks later, after intensive practice sessions, Howard sat in the wings of the concert hall, nervously adjusting his bow tie. Sophia sat beside him, radiant in a simple blue gown. "Remember," she said softly, "it's just us playing, like in the sunroom." Marcus approached, looking unusually tense in his tuxedo. "Everything's ready. The piano is positioned correctly." Howard reached for his son's hand, gripping it with surprising strength. "Together," he said, the word clear and deliberate. Something unspoken passed between father and son. Forgiveness, understanding, a new beginning. As they moved toward the stage, Marcus impulsively touched Sophia's shoulder. "Thank you," he whispered. "For everything." Her smile contained a warmth that reached beyond professional boundaries. "This is just the beginning," she promised. Symphony complete. The benefit concert became the talk of New York social circles, but not for the reasons Marcus had feared. Howard's performance, simple but deeply moving, earned a standing ovation not from pity, but genuine appreciation. Photographs captured the moment, Howard at the keyboard, Sophia beside him and Marcus turning pages, his face transformed by pride. What the cameras didn't capture was what happened afterward. The private celebration at the Harrington home, where Howard played again, this time with Marcus hesitantly joining in, remembering pieces his mother had taught him decades earlier. As winter settled over the city, the rhythm of their lives shifted. Howard's therapy progressed to twice-weekly outings, museums, concerts, even business functions where old colleagues welcomed him back into the fold. His speech remained halting but improved steadily, each new word a victory. More significant was the change in Marcus. Board members noticed his increased delegation of responsibilities, his earlier departures from the office. His executive assistant remarked that he actually took lunch breaks now, often at a small cafe near Mercy Hospital. On a snowy December evening, Marcus invited Sophia to dinner, not at an exclusive restaurant as she expected, but in the Harrington home kitchen. "You cook?" she asked, watching him confidently prepare risotto. "My mother insisted all her boys learn," he replied. "She said no son of hers would be helpless in a kitchen." Howard joined them for the first course before tactfully excusing himself, claiming fatigue though his eyes twinkled with matchmaking intent. Alone together, the conversation flowed easily between them, touching on music, medicine, and memories. As they moved to the living room with glasses of wine, Sophia noticed the grand piano was uncovered. "You've been playing," she observed. Marcus nodded. "It helps me think differently." "About the company." "About life." "And what have you been thinking?" she asked, settling beside him on the sofa. "That I've been running a marathon without knowing what finish line I was aiming for," he admitted. Building the company, expanding the foundation, it became a way to outrun guilt. To prove my life was worth the cost of my mother's. Sophia took his hand, her touch warm and grounding. "And now? Now I'm learning there might be more to living than achieving," he said, meeting her gaze. "You showed me that." "You and my father." The admission hung between them, honest and vulnerable. When he leaned toward her, she met him halfway. Their kiss gentle at first, then deepening with months of unspoken longing. "I've wanted to do that since the night of the gala," he confessed. "I've been hoping you would," she replied, her smile luminous in the firelight. Spring brought renewal in more ways than one. Howard began volunteering at Mercy Hospital's Rehabilitation Center, using his hard-won expertise to encourage new stroke patients. His progress featured in a medical journal article co-authored by Sophia and Dr. Patel. Marcus restructured Harrington Technologies, appointing a CEO to handle daily operations while he focused on innovation and philanthropy. The company's new music therapy initiative for neurological rehabilitation centers became his personal project. On a perfect May evening, Marcus took Sophia to the botanical garden where his parents had first met. As cherry blossoms floated around them, he knelt on one knee. "Before you, my life was a monochrome existence of work and obligation," he said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "You brought color back, not just to my father's life, but to mine." Sophia's eyes filled with tears as he continued. "You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. That connection matters more than achievement. I don't want another day without you in it." He opened a small velvet box, revealing a sapphire ring. "Marry me?" "Yes," she whispered, pulling him to his feet and into her arms. 1,000 times yes. Later that evening, they shared the news with Howard, who responded with the clearest sentence he'd managed yet. "About time, son." The following winter, the Harrington Foundation hosted another gala. This time, Howard entered the ballroom not as a forgotten figure in the corner, but as an honored guest, escorted by his new daughter-in-law. Marcus delivered a speech about transformation, of his father, of the Foundation's mission, and of himself. 3 years ago, I believed success was measured by market share and stock prices, he told the assembled guests. Then a music therapist knelt beside my father and saw not his limitations, but his potential. Across the room, Sophia smiled, her hand resting protectively over her slightly rounded stomach, their newest secret, shared only with Howard thus far. She reminded us both that true wealth isn't counted in dollars, Marcus continued, but in moments of connection, in courage, in love. My father once told me that music teaches us that even dissonance has its place in creating something beautiful. Our family's journey proves him right. As applause filled the room, Marcus found Sophia's eyes in the crowd. In her gaze, he saw what had been missing from his life for so long. Not achievement or validation, but something far more valuable. The promise of tomorrow, faced together, one note at a time. Near the grand piano where Howard now sat, preparing to play for the assembled guests, a photograph stood in a silver frame. Marcus and Sophia on their wedding day, Howard between them, all three faces alight with joy. Beside it, a small music box played the first notes of Clair de Lune, the melody that had begun their symphony.